buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Hola, buenas tardes. Venid conmigo de
Hello.
nuevo.
Good afternoon.
Solo
We're
un
back
poco más,
here.
2 sesiones.
2 more
Una
sessions
muy
left.
informativa y la otra
One is more
muy esperada.
informative, and the
Comenzamos con la
other
informativa.
we are
Es una
always
sesión sobre nuevas
waiting for it.
herramientas para
First,
Storyboard Y Animáticas.
new tools for
Es una charla en
Storyboard
la que
and
contamos
Animatics.
con un invitado
In
excepcional,
this tool, we
que es una de
have
las
a
personas
very
más
special
innovadoras de este
guest,
país
and
en
is
el
one of the
campo
most
de la animación.
innovative people
Estamos ante un
in the
creador y
animation
director de
field.
cine de animación
He is the creator
excepcional,
and
ganador de innumerables
has
premios
won
y además un desarrollador de software
in fact,
que está
a great number of
cambiando la manera
awards,
de
and he's a
producir en
software
animación.
developer. He's changing the way
Estamos
of
ante un
developing in
Leonardo da
animation.
Vinci de la animación.
He's the Leonardo da
Seguramente se
Vinci of
enfade con
animation.
nosotras y nosotros
He
por
may
hacer
get
esta
mad
comparación,
with us because
pero
of
es
making
la que
this
hemos querido hacer.
comparison. But this is the
Él es
comparison
el
we
gran
wanted to
creador y
make. He
multidisciplinar
is the
Daniel
great
Martínez
creator
Lara.
of this
Bienvenido.
webinar. Daniel Martínez Lara.
Os voy a dejar con él, que os va a hacer una demo en directo.
Perfecto.
We will make a demo
Bueno, pues nada, muchas
live.
gracias por estar aquí.
Well, thank you very much for
Primero,
being here today.
spoiler, me ha petado el disco duro de mi
Spoiler,
presentación, pero lo tenía que
my
operar
hard
antes, o sea,
drive
creo
just
que vamos a
broke.
poder salir, pero ha sido
Hopefully
ahora, o sea,
we will know how to do
justamente
it.
por eso hemos empezado un poquito más tarde. Así que vamos a...
This is broke, but I'm gonna give it a try. Hopefully it will work.
Entonces, primero, me presento.
Let me introduce myself first. I'm Daniel Martínez Lara, and my 3 passions are these 3 here. Learning. I have my own animation school inside in Barcelona, where I teach animation. I also create online videos to explain tools and different ideas, and also I'm being a consultant for some, I work on consulting for different professionals and studies that start working with these tools that we will fully see. Secondly, I also do animation short films. My background is mostly related to Maya, Max, but after 14 years or so, I started with Blender. This is the like short film and the hero. Both are available online. Hero is like a fake trailer used to develop one of my 3rd passions, which are the animation tools. I'm not a programmer, but I work with different programmers, and this is one of the things that I like a lot. Developing tools and so that they help me through the process. Finding different tools too. My great inspiration is the 2D workflow. Imagine an animator with a pencil and his own art is able to create a whole character. There's a lot of interaction in that way of working. And the background there is trying to bring all of that to 3D, trying to bring a more fresher pipeline. So here we have 2 tools. One is Grease Pencil. Some of you may know it, and so some of you may not, but this tool is to create 2D animation in a 3D environment. This is a full 2D pipeline, but you are using it in a 3D program. In this case, it's Blender. Second tool is Hero. Sorry, in Hero, I just adapted I just put into practice the Grease Pencil tool. The second one here is in development. This is the Blender game shop. And this Blender is about creating digital stop motion in 3D. All these things will be put together and will be mixed up during the talk. We will talk about a storyboard, but the thing is, when finding a common place where various techniques come together, many things happen, new things, new techniques arise. And this is the interesting part of it, because sometimes there are things that you haven't thought about it. You see one thing, you see the other, and what about if you put them all together? New things will come up, and we will fully see it during today's session.
Entonces, vamos a hablar, ¿no? El objetivo principal son cómo todo esto.
The main objective here is how this has an impact on developing new storyboard and animatics tools. Then, what is the main problem with the pipeline and the storyboard? And the thing is that there is no problem, really, because there is no pipeline. In a storyboard, there are many directors, but the work works, and that's all. You're a storyboard artist, and you have some directors working with you, some producers, and you paint it in Photoshop, more advanced things like a Storyboard Pro, and picture management tools, and that's it. There's no problem because it works, and it's been working for decades, and the results are promising. We need to see 2 points here. On one side, on one hand, is what do we understand as animatic storyboard, and to what extent do we want to go? And is something blurred? The artist, the director join together? Well, I fully explained it during the session. On the other hand, is what does Blender offer? As I said, Blender is a free open source office app tool, and it's fully available for everyone. Also, these development tools are totally free. What does it offer to see where is the link? So these 2 things, this way we can find new ways to create storyboards and animatics. Stages in a storyboard and animatics. What do you want to extract from the storyboard? It depends on the producer, and also it depends on the storyboard drawer skills. But just to put in some clear stages, first of all is that you are looking at a fast, agile, and spontaneous story. You just want to see, you just want to put the ideas. There's a guideline that's a producer, and let's give it a little bit of shape, you know? That's the classic storyboard. We have the pictures. You have seen the typical, you know, the classic picture making-ofs, the panels that are drawn. So one starts just explaining the idea or on how to solve that story. You don't need any pipeline there. It's a drawer, you just put ideas, and that's it. In the next one, this would be the animatic. You want to know the rhythm and the last, and how many times does this story last. So that part is for, so know if you can move on to the next stage, and you need to know what is the rhythm and the length of the story. If you want to watch a video where you play it, you have the feeling of time, so you can put some music. Altogether, you will know if this is going to be fast or not. Something that you believe that work in the first stage suddenly doesn't work. Sometimes some things you can move, and this story doesn't fit in any way. Maybe the story works, but not within the lasting and the rhythm. This is a very organic workflow, and you need to adapt and adapt until that generates what you're thinking. So the two first parts. These are parts of parts linked to the classical storyline pipeline. Photoshop, you've got the times, you create a video, you take them to the premiere, and you play along with that edition. The key here is if you want to play along exploring the visual composition and the cinematographic composition too, you want to create a work. It works when it comes to the rhythm, also the shots. But if I had a tool, or if I had different ways to think about how it being unreal, like something that I could explore more cinematographic ideas, compositions. And it also depends on the story artist. This person has he's very good at composing. He has ideas also. But if this person is able to think about the frames, not only descriptional, but he's just thinking something visually powerful. Once you know what to tell, or you want to tell in this story, that part is really interesting. And this is the moment when this becomes more interesting. In this case, using Blender, and this way in this moment you can start exploring. And a new concept. This is the pre-layout. Somehow this story could become a pre-layout to what will be the final layout. Pre-layout is the first production file. There's a first file. This is the pre-layout. Everything's are referenced, like the characters move like this, the scenes, the shots, everything's very basic. And as long as the different departments work, they just feed this file. Those who worked in 3D layouts are not really expressive. They are not used for the final story, but they are really useful to organize the full production. Here you find this possibility. You will be able to do some magic. Oh, it's my computer. Please don't clash. Okay. I love you. So we have the pre-layout again. This is like a dream becoming true for pre-production people using this story somehow. And this is possible. Some companies are doing it already, and it has a price. Well, no, and you're adjusting something. You're including the pipeline as long you want to draw the characters some size, specific size. So afterwards, when creating the layout, depending on the shape, you will be able to replace it. It's possible. And depending on your production, it will be that system, including more pipelines in the early stages, can work for you, and they can be interesting. When you have a great production plan, like a series or something like that, not for a film, but we have a high value and the chapters repeat again and the scenes, it's really interesting to use it, and people do it already. You are risking that to the artist. What is the artist that can work with this, really? Well, the pipeline. My pipeline is rename a JPEG as a second sequence, and that's all. And just paying me just to make some ideas, not because I want to take into account different things. There's a break. The limit is blurred, you know? What is to the artist's story? That artist is really good, and one does it with Photoshop and the other with different softwares. Different artists use different softwares, and it's okay.
¿de acuerdo? Esto por un lado, ¿no? Entendiendo un
On
poco
one
qué
side,
es lo que
this was
puedes
the
sacar
whole
del tema
idea.
de
What
Storyboard Y
can
Animática,
you
¿no? Y después ya decidirás tú
take
hasta dónde quieres ir.
from this storyboard animatic system?
Vale, entonces ahora vamos a ver, por otro lado, ¿de acuerdo? ¿Qué es lo que ofrece
Now,
Blender en este caso?
let's see what does Blender offer.
Para ver cómo todo esto se puede empezar
In order to see
digamos, a montar un pipeline, ¿no? Porque están todas
how
las
could
piezas,
we
lo que falta
begin
es
making a
eso,
full
una herramienta que es la que
pipeline.
nosotros
You
estamos
have the
trabajando, que es
pieces,
una
but
herramienta
we
de
need the
Storyboard,
tool that we are
¿vale?
working
Que
with. This is
básicamente
a storyboard
es una
tool.
herramienta para todas estas cosas.
This
Te
is
voy a enseñar
basically a
poderlas
tool for
organizar
all
de una
these things
manera
I'm going to
más
show, and
directa,
you
sin
can
que sea
organize it
tanto todas las
somehow
piezas.
more directly.
Recording in
Vamos.
progress.
Entonces,
Okay.
nuestro amigo el Blender,
Our
¿vale?
friend
Es un programa
Blender
de animación 3D.
is a
¿De acuerdo? Básicamente
3D
su función
animation
principal es
program.
un programa de
Its
animación 3D
main
como entendemos, ¿no?
function
Es decir,
is
que
a
puedes
3D,
modelar, puedes
being a
texturizar,
3D
puedes hacer
program. You
rigs,
can
renderizar,
model, you can do
un poco todo eso.
reels,
Pero
rendering, and all that. But
es un festival. ¿De acuerdo? Es un festival
it's a
porque hay un montón
kind
de
of
cosas ahí dentro.
fest. There are a
¿De acuerdo?
million things in the
De Blender,
program.
¿vale?
In
Entonces,
Blender,
por
I
ejemplo,
mean.
una de ellas es el tema de...
One of which
Bueno, mira, voy a
is...
empezar aquí por el
Okay,
Eevee,
okay.
¿no?
Let me just begin with the
Que el
Eevee.
Eevee es un motor en tiempo
Eevee.
real,
This is a real-time
¿vale?
engine.
Digamos, tipo Unity, Unreal, o sea, tipo
It's like
en el
Unity
sentido
and
de que
Real.
Unreal
I mean that
está preparado
I know that
para,
Unreal is
sobre todo para
prepared
interactividad. Es
for
un programa
interactivity.
ya digo, muy
But
preparado
this
para
is
cosas
a
como
program prepared for
con
things
otro enfoque, ¿no?
like,
Pero lo
things with
interesante es que lo tienes
different
aquí ya
objectives.
integrado,
But the thing
¿de
is
acuerdo?
that
Lo
it's
tienes aquí
integrated
integrado,
here.
¿no? Y tú puedes jugar, pues eso, con...
And you
vamos a
can
por
play
aquí,
along with it,
¿no? Buscando, ya tienes los
trying to
desenfoques,
find different
puedes jugar con
things.
las luces.
You can play with the lighting.
Vamos a irnos un poco más para atrás, así vemos qué es lo que hace.
Let's zoom out a little bit just to,
¿Vale?
to
Cambiar
see the
las
lighting.
texturas, un poco todo
You
eso, ¿no?
can change the
viene integrado.
textures.
De hecho, creo que
It's
había por
fully
aquí,
integrated.
si me lo carga, una lupa.
I can also zoom
Ahí.
in or zoom out.
Si coges la lupa, pues eso, funciona ahí.
With this magnifier,
¿Vale?
you can do it.
Entonces, este es un motor de tiempo real y aparte tiene un motor,
And
digamos,
this
offline.
is the
Este es
real
online,
engine.
¿no?
This
O
also we have the
temporal,
offline or the
tiene un
online, the
render
real
que es el
time.
cycles, que es para,
It
digamos,
has a
para conseguir
cyclist
más
render.
calidades
This is to get more
eso, pues ya,
information, more
ya que estamos hablando de
qualities,
que
higher
esto tarda segundos
qualities.
en renderizar, ¿no? Pues nosotros
If
estamos
it
hablando
takes
ya de 3,
seconds
4
for
minutos, 10,
rendering, now
una
this
hora,
would be
depende
like
de lo que
3,
estemos
4
haciendo,
minutes,
¿no?
1 hour. Well,
Pero,
it will depend
digamos,
on
ya
what you're
permite
doing.
todo esto, ¿no? Entonces, de hecho, tenemos otro ejemplo por aquí, a ver si me lo carga.
We have another example here. Let me just open it.
¿Dónde estás? Blends. De acuerdo. Y vamos a coger este de aquí.
Okay,
De
let's
acuerdo, que tiene
take
que hacer
this
un
one
proceso
here.
al principio. Vamos a cargarlo.
And it's to
Que está cargando,
do a
compilando, digamos,
process.
todas
It
las
is getting
texturas y todo esto.
uploaded, okay? The textures and everything.
¿Vale? Y todo esto es tiempo real, ¿de acuerdo?
This is real time.
¿Ok? Y de hecho, si buscáis en internet Blender Eevee
If
demos,
you search on the internet Blending and demos, you have billion things.
Te digo, esto no
And
sustituye
how
a
it
un
says.
Unreal.
This
Si quieres el Unreal para
doesn't
ciertas cosas
substitute
para
Unreal.
interactividad,
If you want things
potencia, ¿de acuerdo?
of
Está
Unreal,
mucho más
like
preparado para muchas
interactivity,
cosas, ¿no? Pero
but this is
para
prepared
lo que
for
estamos
many
hablando,
other
que es
things. But
visualización, de
just to
herramientas, de un
view
escenario, de no sé
tools,
qué, más que de
scene,
sobra, ¿de acuerdo?
it is
Más que de
totally
sobra.
fine. You can use it,
Vale.
really.
Entonces, por otro lado, ¿de acuerdo? Vale,
Okay.
tenemos el Eevee
On the
por
other
un lado,
hand,
¿no?
we
Por
have
otro
the
lado, el
Eevee.
Blender es un programa de animación
Sorry, on the other hand, we have Blender. This is a
3D, ¿vale?
3D animation
Es decir,
program,
típico. Pero también tiene incluido lo de la
but
herramienta esta de
also
Existen
it
que os
includes the
comentaba,
Grease
¿vale?
Pencil
Que empezamos
tool.
a desarrollarla hará unos 8 años,
We started
¿vale?
developing
Y
it
ahora,
8
bueno,
years
pues ahora
ago,
es eso, ya empiezan a ver películas
and now you can watch
que se están
films
haciendo con eso, ¿de
that
acuerdo?
have
De
been
hecho,
created
la
with
del
that.
2019 creo que fue,
In
una película nominada a los Oscar estaba hecha
2009,
con
a
I
film
Lost
that
My
was
Body, la
presented
tenéis
for
en
the
Netflix,
Oscar
una
Awards. It
película
was I
francesa.
Love My
En
Body.
3D,
I Lost
con
My
2D,
Body.
todo
This is
esto
a
estaba hecho
French
con green
film,
pen, y además la versión
2D,
antigua,
3D. It was
¿vale?
made
Que
with
de
Green
hecho no me
Pencil.
quería
This
poner
is
en
the
contacto con
old
ellos
tool. Also, I didn't want to get in touch with them because I didn't want to listen their feedback. This was super old version. But now they are finishing up a production here in Spain, Unicom Boards by Alberto Vázquez, with some new films, production series that are starting to use grease pencil. And that's the objective, to use this tool. Let me just show you how it works. You have your toolkit here. The good thing is that this is being painted in a 3D space. This is geometry. This is a shape, really. It's like, those who are using Quill, you draw these kind of things, and this is similar, really. As you can imagine, onion skin, layers, different things. Originally, this tool was developed to make storyboards. It existed in the render, and this was just this, some note taken. You couldn't edit, you couldn't do anything else. Let me just show you some examples about it. You had the possibility, this tool had the possibility to become a production tool. So from animations, this was on the hard drive, and I mostly don't have access anymore to it, but this is the watercolor finishing. This character is 3D character. No. Okay. This is a mesh with the layers. Everything that is in there. I'm not gonna get to talk about all that, but these tools that you can find here is everything that you would expect from this kind of software. And Enrique Gato always says me, what is this useful? Really? Rotating? Well, this way you can see that it's not a flat picture. It's a shape, really. It's a 3D shape. You can see different styles. This is not a grease pencil demo, but there are many tools. This is drawn like that, but you can modify something like noising. These are 3D concepts. This is just a picture, but coming from the 2D background, it seems to be magic. But from 3D, coming from the 3D background, these are tools that exist, that have exist for a long time. All of them apply to this object. This is the grease pencil.
Y esos son objetos, ¿no? Vamos a ver más estilos, ¿no? Ay, espérate, a ver si este...
We're going to see more styles, different styles. Sorry, I just lost it.
Vale, vamos a ver, por ejemplo, a ver si este me lo abre bien. Igual, ¿de acuerdo?
I'm going to open this file. This is the exact same.
Aquí hay un problema ahí con el color.
Well, there's a problem with the color. Well, this is made in 3D. This is a grease pencil object with different layers, and this is another grease pencil object. Those little particles that you can see around are Blender particles. From the camera, the result is really good, really. When it comes to the strokes, to the brushes, sorry, it's in the 3D. This is based on pixels. It has many advantages, but you can obtain very good results, more artistic looks. If you want something more pictorial, it would be different. Here you can see clearly the different objects. This is the hero short film. This is the background painted in Photoshop.
Y después estos son todos
This
los
has got a
personajes,
background, and these are all the different
¿no? En
characters.
escena. Hola, adiós.
Hello,
Vale,
bye.
esto lo puedes duplicar.
You can
Aquí
double
tenemos a los
this
gemelos
character
golpeando
here.
veces. Ahí está.
These are
Vale.
the
Porque son
twins.
objetos, es lo que puedes hacer en un
These are
entorno
objects.
3D.
This is what you
Con
can
objetos
create in a
3D, pues aquí
3D
haces lo que te
environment.
digo.
With a 3D environment,
Esas
you can do
cosas
that short film.
son
Those
intrínsecas
little
a que está
things
dentro de Blender. A eso es a lo que me
are
refiero. ¿Vale? Y ahí
in
entonces cuando
Blender.
empiezas a combinar, obtienes
And
cosas,
when
¿no?
you
O puedes
start
empezar a meter como mucho
to
más 3D.
mix
A ver
it
si tengo
up
algún
and
ejemplo
combine
aquí que no se
different
haya
things,
perdido.
the results can be really good. Let me just open another
Por ejemplo, ¿no? Este
example.
es también del corto de Hero.
This is also from Hero's short film.
Ahí está. Uy, sí, he perdido la línea. Ah, no, está ahí. ¿No? Pues el avión, obviamente, es 3D.
The plane is a 3D object,
Pero hay un sistema que coge objetos 3D y
but
hace
there's a
una línea
system
por
that
encima.
takes 3D objects
Bueno,
and traces up the
y
line
aquí
over it.
tenemos, esto, ¿no? Que todo esto de la cámara pues se ve ahí pues bien.
Also in the camera,
Vale,
you can see
por
it
cierto, todos
perfectly.
estos archivos están online y gratuitos
All
para
these
bajar.
files
Y todo esto
are
que estoy
fully
enseñando,
available to
¿de acuerdo? Para hacer
download. They are
ingeniería inversa.
online.
Si eso
And this you
después,
can see
os digo dónde.
I will tell you where
Y bueno, por ver
they are
alguna cosa más,
available.
por ejemplo, aquí más en 3D. Ah, mira, aquí hay
Oh,
un ejemplo
look.
ahí que viene a colación.
I've got a different example.
¿Vale? Estoy cargando aquí todas las texturas, pero eso ya veis que esto,
As you can see,
¿de
this
acuerdo?
part here,
Todo este escenario es 3D,
or this,
pintado, además
this is
pintado
a
aquí dentro,
3D
pintado dentro de
scene.
Blender,
It's been
¿vale? Que también
painted
tiene
in
un
Blender.
pintador. Y yo qué sé, las luces, a ver qué tengo por aquí.
On different lighting.
Lights, esta. Ahí. Ok, vale, puedes mover las luces y de hecho en las próximas versiones, ahora ya la luz afecta a los gris pencil, a los objetos gris pencil, pero ahora van a arrojar sombras, le vas a poner materiales más o menos estándar, ¿no? Que brillen, que no sé qué, va a ser como una geometría con todos los materiales estándar y todo esto, ¿no? O este ejemplo, ¿no? Que es una de las cosas que comentaré, mira, no sabía que lo tenía aquí, que aunque tengo otra cosa para enseñar, pero aquí, por ejemplo, que esto es también de Hero, cuando se están aquí peleando, ¿vale? Todas estas nubes, ¿de acuerdo? Todas estas nubes están hechas.
All these lights are on
traídas
Quill.
aquí. Ya los que habéis estado con Quill ya reconocéis.
Here, those of you that have worked on Quill,
Vale,
you already know
en
these
esto.
ones,
Y están
right?
traídas aquí, ¿no? Que es una de las cosas que experimenté, ¿no? Decir,
And this is one of the things that I experienced.
coges algo,
It's one of the things that we will talk about. You take something, you do it on Quill, you bring it here, and you can use it as an asset, as a reference. This is final art.
Storyboard Animática, claro, hay un combo de la hostia. ¿No?
Of course, this is a great combination, being able to do something, some scenario quickly, bring it here, and edit it
El
there.
Pencil da para mucho, ya digo, porque es una herramienta de
Grease
producción,
pencil, you know, it's useful for many, many
completa, ¿no? En el
things.
sentido de que puedes hacer una peli
It's a very
totalmente
complete production tool. You can do an entire movie with it,
porque estás
right?
jugando ya dibujando directamente
Because
en el espacio.
you are
Puedes
drawing
utilizarlo, por
directly.
ejemplo, en la película esta de Unicorn
For
Watch,
instance, you
el 3D
can
no lo han
use it on
utilizado
Unicorn Watch, for
nada.
example.
Es decir,
3D hasn't really
cogen
been
los gris pencil,
used
dibujan ahí,
that
dibujan
much.
pegado,
They
hacen
drew
el
with grease
clásico,
pencil,
o sea,
they have the
pequeños el
background,
personaje,
you know,
lo
the
dibujan más pequeño, lo
classic
vas haciendo más
stuff.
grande y ya está.
You draw
Lo
it
puedes
small,
utilizar
you
de esa
make it
manera, no
bigger,
tienes que
and that's
utilizar,
it.
si
And that's how
quieres,
you use it.
todo el
You
tema
don't
de
really have
cámaras y
to
eso.
use
Es
cameras if you don't want
simplemente es una
to.
opción que tienes, ¿vale?
It's just an action.
Ok, vale, entonces por un lado,
All right, so on the
por
one
otro
hand, we
lado,
have
el
it.
Blender, ¿de
On
acuerdo?
the
Tiene
other
herramientas de
hand,
Sculpt,
they have the
¿de
Blender
acuerdo?
with
Tiene
Sculpt
herramientas de Sculpt,
tool.
¿no? Y además unas herramientas de Sculpt bastante decentes.
And these
¿De acuerdo? Se puede
tools are
esculpir
quite
cosas suaves, ¿vale?
interesting. You can
Simplemente
really do some
aquí,
cool sculpting.
¿vale? Entonces tiene aquí las herramientas de Sculpt, ¿no? Que tiene
You have
un
the
puñado y ya digo, hay
Sculpt
esto es un festival del humor,
tool.
hay cosas aquí.
There are
¿vale?
so many things that you can do here.
Voy a dar aquí. ¿Vale? Entonces, tú puedes, vamos a utilizar simplemente el grabar, ¿vale? El graph, ¿no? Que tú puedes esculpir,
You have
editar,
everything
hacer
here. You
arrugas,
can
¿no? Ahora
edit it, you
¿no?
can add
Entonces,
wrinkles,
esto
you
daría
can
para
do
otra demo en sí de todas las
sculpting.
herramientas de
You could
Sculpt,
do
porque
an
puedes
entire
esculpir
demo
personajes
on
enteros
this, actually,
rascando
because
de
you
la
can
nada, ¿no?
do
Como en un
entire
sandbox,
characters
¿vale?
from
Igual,
scratch
¿no? El ZBrush
with the sculpting
para
tool.
ciertos paneles viene genial y está súper preparado para muchas cosas, pero
Because it's just great
para
for
muchas cosas que
some
tienes que
things,
modelar,
but for
tienes que
many
sobrar
other
todo
things
lo
that
que
need
podría ser.
modeling,
Vale, entonces
no, we don't
tenemos también esta
apply
parte de
this
Sculpt,
to.
¿no?
So again, we have
Y
the
ahora,
sculpting
por un lado
aspect
tenemos
here.
Grease Pencil, por otro lado
We
tenemos
have Grease
Sculpt,
Pencil on the one hand,
y
we
ahora
have Sculpt on the other one.
que estamos
And
desarrollando,
let's now talk about
¿de
a tool
acuerdo?
that we are developing.
Que la sacaremos en las próximas semanas.
We will show it in the next few weeks. We will
¿Vale?
release it in the next
Que
few
la
weeks.
sacaremos en las próximas semanas. Vamos aquí a vídeos.
And
¿Vale? Es el Claymation. ¿De acuerdo?
that's
Que antes se llamaba
Claymation.
Keymesh.
It used to be called Keymesh.
Ya controlo el volumen yo desde aquí. ¿Vale? Esto,
Okay. And
¿de
this,
acuerdo? Esta pequeña animación fue un test que hice.
this little animation was a test that I did a while
¿Vale?
ago.
Entonces aquí el pipeline es.
And the pipeline
Pencil, me dibujo.
here
¿Qué ha
is
pasado?
I use Grease Pencil to draw.
Estamos de chill out.
Give me 1 second.
Ya está.
There we go.
Ahí. ¿Vale? Entonces esta herramienta,
So this tool,
¿vale? Esta pequeña animación, entonces, primero es un planteamiento en 2D. con
this
Grease
little
Pencil, ¿no?
animation is in 2D, right? With the Grease Pencil, with the tools, you just do a draft of
¿De
what
acuerdo?
you
Y
want to
utilizando
draw.
un poco ya el IBI, ¿no? Con el render.
And then you can use the
Una
even,
esfera,
etc. And then here we have a sphere. You can start sculpting, you can start doing different things here. With this tool, we can add animation in each frame, right? And you can start sculpting the animation.
¿Vale? Y utilizando aquí, ya digo, las herramientas de Sculpt, hay 1000 cosas que puedes hacer ahí.
You can use several sculpting tools here. There are lots of things that you can do.
Se va aquí haciendo perrerías a la
And so you
mano,
can generate tools, you can generate the mesh, you can turn it up and down.
Tengo toda esa parte hecha.
You have the Grease Pencil, everything.
¿Vale? Y esto es un trabajo, es un pipeline directo, ¿no? Que tú trabajas con la malla y en cada frame vas
It's a direct pipeline. You're working on the mesh, and so of course, sculpting tool, sculpt tool.
Trabajando con la persona que hace el programador que hace todas las herramientas de Sculpt, porque además es.
You work with the programmer that, the programmer that I work with, who's from Spain. We work on the posing system, so you can have a pose for the characters. You don't have, even if they don't have the rig yet, it does sort of like a real-time rigging, and you can start posing. You just put that frame there, and that's there. You don't have to do the rig. A faster way to do it. I have other videos where you can see these much better, but this is a good example. So this is sculpt, right? So if I don't like the shoulder, I can soften it, and it looks better. And then you can play around with the modifiers, right? Have classic modifiers of both 3D program. You can include that texture. Or you can do crazier stuff.
Para darle un rollo ahí como más acabado, más poligonal, o un Minecraft.
Or
claro, y esto se ejecuta por encima de lo que tú estás haciendo.
Interpreter apologizes. The music doesn't allow us to hear the speaker.
Ok, pues ya está, ahí se acaba esto. A ver, con la música de Kickstarter, esta, vale, fuera. Vale, entonces de repente es eso, hay una herramienta que puedes esculpir, hacer cosas de ese tipo.
You have a sculpt tool,
utilizas el Grease Pencil
and
tu programa 3D.
what happens is that you can use the Grease Pencil to do the draft within your 3D program, and you can use that as a reference point to do the sculpt.
Que lo que estamos implementando ahora,
the next step, which is what we are working on now, is combining what would happen if you draw it
te dibujas en Grease Pencil, ¿no?
on Grease Pencil.
Y ver una herramienta que te lo convierte a geometría.
And there's a tool that turns it into geometry directly.
¿Vale? Entonces, claro, ya tienes, o sea, tú has trabajado con un pabellón desde cero y ¡pum! Ya tienes un volumen ahí.
You're working on your 2D character, and all of a sudden you have it in 3D.
Para hacer
And
eso,
these
para
can be
añadir lo que
copied
hemos
on,
visto,
right? You
podría ser un
can
muñeco.
modify it, you can do whatever you want with it.
¿No? Y utilizando las herramientas de School, que ya digo, hay un montón de cosas, por ejemplo,
You
aquí,
can sculpt tools, like here, for instance. You know, that's it for the snail.
Esto Ucrania y Rusia.
Ukraine and Russia, that's it.
Vale, entonces.
Okay.
Ahí toda esta parte está hecho en
all of this
en Grease Pencil, ¿no? Planteado por
done
el
with
animador.
Grease Pencil. That's how the animator thought about it. And by using this tool, you can turn it half a minute. That's how magical editing is like. You can turn it into claymation.
Y ahora, claro, ya puedo tocar
right?
esto.
And now I can, you know, retouch this and do whatever I want with it.
El School, que es cloth, ¿no?
There's a tool called cloth that turns things into sort of fabric, and you can sort of inflate it like that. Give it a little bit more thickness. So I can, you know, add wrinkles, do whatever I want with that mesh.
¿No? Esto ya, digamos, es una aplicación práctica.
This is a practical application of
el objetivo del claymation,
this tool. The goal of claymation in the future will be to be able to animate an entire character
de stop motion. Ese es el objetivo, como pasa en Quill o cosas de ese tipo, ¿no? Pero claro, pues,
faster way.
Combinarlo con muchas cosas.
You can combine that with many
other aplicación práctica que es esta.
Now, this is the practical application with all the 2D effects, everything that you can draw, and then all of a sudden transfer that and turn it into 3D. This is very easy, but you can add deformations, different materials, textures, volumes. You can make it look like mud, or I don't know, what is this nail made of? I don't know what it's made of, but it's 3D. You can turn it into that material.
Vale, pues ahí está.
Okay.
Entonces, esto es un poco lo que os comentaba, ¿no? Que de repente
now, this is what I was telling you about.
3D, 3D, ¿no?
You have a 3D program, you have 2D tool, the entire pipeline integrated there, you have the sculpt tools. So once you start combining everything, this is about how you make these connections, right? And I think there's a lot of possibilities there in the future. And now the final component, even though Blender has other things like composition, layout, etc., one of the tools is a video editing tool.
O sea, editor de vídeo, de editar vídeo.
Editing video, yes. All the videos that I projected here, I edited them in Blender. Is it a video editing software if you're working for National Geographic? No, that's not what it's for. You have other options for that. But it's a video editing software, and it's included there. You can use it for many things, cutting, pasting, etc. And actually, there were some improvements in terms of performance in the most recent release. So there was a demo that I had in my hard drive that is completely gone now, obviously. So I'm going to improvise here quickly so you can see how the video editing tool works. Just click on next. We're doing well in terms of time.
Vídeos. ¿Vale?
Okay.
Entonces, por ejemplo, el vídeo este que he puesto aquí antes,
so
¿no?
let's say this video here.
A ver, me lo he arrastrado, no lo he arrastrado.
You need to drag it.
Ahí. ¿Vale? Entonces,
There
esto es un editor de vídeo. De hecho, ya digo,
this is a video editing tool again.
Con esto, ¿no? Que yo
and like I said, I organized this video in this tool. I'll get rid of the volume, I'll lower the volume.
Vale, ya digo, es un editor de vídeo en el que yo puedo cortar.
Okay, I can
¿vale?
cut and edit. So I can take this, drag it up, I can zoom in and out, I can move it around. I can see two things at once, for example. Right, so now I have the two frames here. You can add text, audio. I mean, a video editing tool. Again, it's not super fancy. It's not going to replace Premiere, but it works.
Entonces, aquí ya nos acercamos un poco al punto al que quiero llegar, ¿no?
So now we're getting closer to my point in this presentation.
Y falta una feature más.
There's one more feature.
Blender tiene una cosa desde siempre, de toda la vida.
Blender
que tiene
has
escenas.
always had scenes. The concept of the
es que dentro del mismo Blender puede haber distintos.
So within the same Blender, there might be different Blender files, so to speak.
Igual eso es una cosa que no he visto especialmente.
I haven't really focused on that too much. I bet Unreal has that kind of thing, right? But you know, different scene, completely different scene. Let's do something simple here.
Entonces, cojo esta escena, entonces me voy a hacer aquí
otra escena totalmente distinta. I can create a different scene here. I just want to go over the concept very quickly. I can add this, for example.
Okay. Meto aquí la mona. Entonces esto tiene.
And add this figure.
¿De acuerdo? Y son como si fueran archivos Blend distintos.
And it's as if they were different Blender files.
Porque lo vamos a utilizar después, ¿vale?
So please remember that because we're going to use that later. So we have all the pieces here. Now we're going to start putting them together.
Por ejemplo, yo puedo hacer cosas, ¿no? Como por ejemplo aquí en el quill.
So for example, here.
A ver, blends, ¿no?
I can click on this.
Voy a coger este, ¿no? Esto es una escena hecha en Grease Pencil, ¿de acuerdo?
Okay, this is a scene made on Grease Pencil. This is all drawn on Grease Pencil.
Así con miles de capas.
There are thousands of layers here.
Vale, tiene capas esto para aburrir.
There are so many layers. So I can take this one, Control C, I copy that. And those of you that have worked on Quill probably remember this. You have a couple of scenes here that have been imported directly from Quill. Okay. This is imported directly from Quill. This is the scene from Goro, the classic scene. You enter the scene and it never ends, right? You keep zooming in and there's more and more and more and more and more. And it's here. It's already there. And you've done this on Quill. So to summarize, I'm going to take this, the float.
Estoy con la cámara puesta.
I have the camera here.
Y entonces, pues eso, voy a hacer control V y voy a pegar al marinero.
I'm going to do control V and paste the sailor.
Lo voy a poner para acá. ¿Vale? Y tengo aquí la animación.
I'm going to put it here. I have the animation here.
Con lo cual, ¿no? Ya se empiezan un poco a juntar las piezas.
Now we start putting the pieces together. I can do one thing with Quill, with 3D, with whatever. I bring it here. I have the grease pencil to draw on it. I have the cameras. And you can add color. On a storyboard, they would all be on gray colors, etc. But so you can start playing around here, finding different frames, different shots of the character, and you can rotate this so it's always, you know, facing the same direction. You can start playing around with it. And that's how I was saying before, the idea is to find that cinematography, that visual analysis of how we can do that. And that's what's interesting.
Vale, pues tenemos todo esto. Entonces,
okay, so now that we have all this, we're going to put it all together with the video editing tool. One of its characteristics is that on top of working with videos, it can also, and this is the aspect that we are trying to improve, also read scenes directly. So I have the video editing tool here, and what you can see up there are the scenes, the 3D scene. It's not a render. Changing from scene to scene. If you focus on the bottom part, you can see how it switches from scene to scene, right? Point 2, point 1, point 3, right? That's how it goes.
Entonces, claro, la idea ¿no? Que esta es la herramienta que estamos ahora desarrollando. Que esto, ya digo, lo que estamos desarrollando, además, esto es una idea de estudios que ya lo
this
están
is an
utilizando.
idea, there are many students that are already working with this, and this is pretty common sense, right? There are people in France, people at, Warner, Netflix that are working on this. They don't have a pipeline, so they start working and developing this kind of thing. All these tools to standardize. Again, this is not even an original idea. It's just what we want to do is to make sure that this is the basis tool so studios can deploy it so they can see the entire workflow. So we are working on this. Our idea is to work on a scene. It's sort of like Storyboard Pro. You work on different scenes and you can start drawing on them, right? You switch to a different scene and you can draw on it. But you can see the real scenes and you're doing it in 2D here. It's completely in 2D. But of course, this is a 3D environment.
Para las primeras fases que os decía de plantear ideas, no sé qué, ver tiempo.
This is what you can use.
Estoy trabajando en 3D.
And you don't have to worry about, am I working in 3D? No, this is just to check the ideas, to check, the learning curve and get better. And again, this is 3D. So you can start moving this around. Here's the pirate again, the sailor. Include a monkey here.
Vale, ok, entonces,
¿vale? I'm going to put that on his face.
Ahora han incluido, que me he cargado ese. Han incluido en Blender, ¿no?
Blender also has now a library asset. You can take files from a server. So this is an asset library. And you can take a chair, for example, drag it, make it bigger. And put it there. You can see it, right? Okay. So you can set up your entire scene. This is how I see this. This is great, but if you want, you have the workflow, you can draw, put in 4 poses, 4 or 5 faces, and you can see how the story goes. Now, if you want to enrich this even more and get to the next stages, you can do it in a comprehensive, integrated way here directly, because you have the grease pencil, you have the video editing tool, you have claymation to do the animation, or the ED, I want to show you some other thing before we finish.
Por ejemplo, ¿no? Aquí este es de un tío que hace storyboards, ¿no?
This is a guy that does storyboards on Blender.
No sé cómo se llama el tío.
I don't know what his name is actually.
Se ve muy oscuro, ¿no? Ahí.
It looks quite dark, right?
Entonces esto se puede ver aquí.
And so you can see this here. Been modeled with sculpt. They put there some rocks. It looks really dark. These characters have been done in grease pencil. There's a guy doing some skating. And then it turns into that. That's an independent scene. So you can click on open. You take this one.
Porque ahora, por ejemplo, bueno, entonces yo puedo, esa escena que está en otro archivo,
that scene that is in another folder, I can bring it here. I can click on File, Open. I can bring this entire scene here. And let's see if I can add it there, if I can bring it. Add alien scene. Yes, here it is.
Entonces ahora tengo esta escena aquí para.
Now I have this scene here.
Vale. Tengo la escena esta aquí.
It's right there.
Ya directamente. Vale. Y estas escenas pueden estar.
Either directly, and these things could be in a server, could be in a file. I can be working on the editing here or whatever. And if I want to enter the scene, I can do so and start playing around in it. You see the idea, right? Again, this is not anything new, it's not original, it's just, you have free buffet and you set up your own menu. And you see how you can organize this
Y después, ya,
to make it work for you. Now, one last thing.
La visión que hay detrás, ¿no? Es eso. Tú te puedes traer las cosas de Quill aquí.
Behind this, you can bring Quill things here, right? And that's the problem, right? The finishing touches, etc. But you can prototype really quickly, and you can do it in a very fast way. It's really cool, right? You click 3 buttons and that's it. So the concept that we want to add is something that we did about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and it's this, what I'm going to show you now, MPX. It's just a name. Our idea is to integrate VR within this.
Vale, ahí está. Vale, y entonces aquí se ve un poquito, aquí eso. Pues eso, estoy hablando.
You can see it here on the screen, right?
Entonces, con el grease pencil estás dibujando.
With the grease pencil, you can draw. This is the final vision, right? You're drawing. It's a grease pencil. It's the best thing for that. Obviously, this is very much edited. You know, I try to make it look natural, but I was holding the camera. I was pretending to be smart while filming the video. So.
Y los tres, claro, limpia la mesa, todo.
My table was clean also, you know, I had to clean up my desk before filming. So that's the concept. You need to use the tool that works for you. So then you take the VR glasses. And again, this is a proof of concept. That is doable. You can use the grease pencil to paint directly there. This grease pencil can turn into geometry, etc., as I've said before.
Vale. Bueno, pues eso, aquí vamos a ir avanzando.
Well, that's it. We are going to
Vale, eso, pues pintando
do a little bit of fast forward in the video. Again, these are the 2D tools, but using VR. You can see the plants, the background that is done in VR, that the character has been painted and painted with the grease pencil. I just wanted to show you that you can also do the sculpting here. Here you're using the mouse, for example, to do all the basic modeling operations. Right? And now you take the VR again and you start doing the sculpting process. Okay. So now that you have the painting tools, you can start adding the colors, and the idea would be to combine these with the grease pencil.
O eso, o pintar aquí cosas más en 3D.
Or you can paint here in 3D.
Vale. Y ya, tenía una cosa que he preparado a última hora.
So I have one thing that I prepared very quickly, very last minute.
Versión que respeta el tema de los vertex color, ¿vale?
I don't have the most recent version, the vertex colors.
Hay un pipeline que también se quiere explorar, ¿no? Y además
there's a pipeline that we want to explore a little bit more.
Pues he cogido, ¿no? Y esto lo he hecho en el hotel en la hora de...
So I did this in the hotel during lunchtime, honestly.
Me refiero aquí...
I'm talking about this.
Tengo yo esto en blends, ¿vale? El guy, ¿no? Esto ya suena, ¿no? Del este, ¿no? Entonces, claro, aquí hay una opción... Ya digo, esto es una cosa experimental, pero aquí
again, this is just an experiment, but...
¿Vale? Que es, claro, como tiene las herramientas de Sculpt, ¿no? Una de las herramientas de Sculpt
tools,
es convertir esto, ¿de acuerdo?
With one of the tools,
una malla única.
You can turn this into one single mesh.
¿Vale? Una malla única. Que yo esta malla única, pues puedo darle amor y ya empezar.
I can play around with it, I can soften it.
Por ejemplo, en esta versión
In this version, for example, you don't have vertex colors, which is what I wanted to do. There's a version that respects the colors. Then from here, can add more density, for example, and I can start sculpting wrinkles on that mesh. I can clean all this. You see how it goes, right? So this structure, this character has been done on quill. And if I combine this with the sculpture that I use to move the character's arms together with claymation to animate it, so, you know, that's the combination, that's the idea. That's the direction that I'm going in. And, you know, I use Blender, but if there was any other program with that same concept, I would do the same. There are several disciplines: 2D animators, stop motion people, 3D animation. If they're all working on the same umbrella, that's how we make progress. That's how we move to different areas. And that's what's exciting for me and encouraging for me. But going back to the story, and I'll finish with this. I was saying before that first, we need to choose where we're going with the story, right? With the story. Because you can be in the first 2 stages and that's it, it works. You have an artist, you have a director, and it's going to do a very quick proposal and it works, and that's it. It's not a problem, there's no problem. Thing here is when you want to do everything else, the composition, the visual composition, when you want to add that with the EV, 3D cameras, etc., editing, all of that. You can play around.
We are trying to put all these together, and we are trying to find a tool that put these things together with a great pencil. Not even an original creation. It's about integrating everything in the same pipeline. If you want to do that first interaction and stay there with your little drawing, you have your video editor, you put it all together and that's it. They want to start the scene. This is when you start with 3D. And this is where there's problem. What artist does it? This should be the artist who feels more comfortable with 3D, etc. This is where I find the problem. This is many of you are using Quill to prototype a story. As Joao said, Next Lab, he didn't know what it was about till last year, watching the Peixe, and he said, okay, now I understand VR. Well, I used to use VR already, but I didn't get it, really. This is a tool to prototype faster an idea. So you need people who know how to work with that. Many consults. I've made many consultancies to classic story people, and some other people just say, what are you talking about? This is beautiful, but let me alone. And they, in the beginning, it's a cool idea, and they say it's very beautiful, but at the end, some other people will do it in the future. So you need to take into account these things when doing all this. Some studies are in a pipeline. They have an artist with a 2D background, and then they have Robbie. They have Batman and Robbie. One who says, okay, I'm going to do it. I paint it with grease pencil objects, pre-animatics, and all that. You take all that. you take a job from somewhere else. Well, basically, if you have any question, yes, please give him a big round of applause.
Gracias. Muchísimas gracias, Dani, por esta
Thank you,
Dani.
Thank you very much for this super workshop. Please, is there any question in the room? Okay, now you need to use the microphone. Okay. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you, Daniel, for your talk. It was deeply interesting. Sorry, maybe I didn't understand it well. Does Blender have a VR mode compatible with Oculus glasses? Yes, but only for scouting. What do you mean with scouting? Yes, scouting in English. So you see the quill scene, and you can navigate, but you can't interact. That thing is about to be launched. Yes, it's in development stage, right? In the beginning, I was about to propose this idea, and now this is being taken by the Blender ones. But we generate the process. That's the idea. The idea is that now there's a beta version. Well, I can't send it to you. You know, this version, it only works with some Oculus. Well, it's not applicable, but this is just a concept. I also, when I put the glasses, it was like, I felt like a mismatch when putting them on. It's not complicated, and all this time, what they did was to do the VR base, and now we need to implement all their interactions. But it's not there yet. Thank you. Is there any other question before going to the round table? Hello, I've got another question. Is there any kind of interpolation between the keyframes animation in two totally different meshes by default? Not really. But, well, this is the Blender tool. We've got the Blender tool, but you can sculpt with a mesh. You have a mesh, right? And you sculpt it. And this is the same mesh that you can use to animate more. There's another example. I didn't bring it here. This is with the animation of a cat. You can search for it. This is an animated cat. This is a cartoon cat. And the cat walks, moves his body, walks around. This is a combination of sculpt tools, generates the bones in real time, suddenly disappears. They interpolating all the meshes, different ones, not really. We do have it in green pencil. If you have two totally different lines, this is the interpolation, and it makes an interpolation that can be useful to create different effects, save up the cleanup, etc. Another question. Hello. Following the interpolation pipeline, you can use the same mesh in quill, right? Distorting. And it will be respected because these are the same angles, right? Is there a way, if in quill you modify the vertex color to be an interpolation color? I believe that you can't do it right now, right? Yes, you can do it with the version we are working on. You can do it. You can interpolate the colors. You can do the structure in quill. Oh, no. In quill, if you want to move it, school. Well, you can do it. The thing is, when you're doing a scene in quill, daylight, and you paint it over it on as if it were dark. You can interpolate the vertex color, yes. It's by Blender. You can have two vertex color and mix them. I mean, because the vertex color information is an information that is included in the mesh. It's called RGB. So you can do another version that you can paint in the Blender with vertex color. You paint whatever. You put them to both of them. This is about you can interpolate that really. Thank you very much. If there are no more questions, let's call your two guests, your two colleagues for this debate or for this roundtable. Let's give a big round of applause to this very last stage of 2022, Enrique, Gato, and Daniel Martín Peixe. Welcome to the stage.
Bueno, pues ahora hablar.
Now, let's talk.
Un poco el objetivo de esta mesa redonda es,
the objective of this roundtable is, on one hand, here there are two representatives of two different worlds. Enrique Gato is director of Tadeo Jones, etc. Now you're with the third season. Yes, we are finishing up the third season. In fact, you started to draw the storyboard with green pencil to do the pipeline, right? One of the things that I really like about Enrique is that you also are a programmer, right? Your background is more linked to programming. How do you take the process to make it better? Art, the definition of art is using the available resources with the budget, with the producers. How to get a final object, how to make a final object survive and be to have good quality. In fact, there is a film. This is the normal stage of a film, of a short film, is that it's not finally development. I mean, surviving all that, and at the end having some qualities, it's impressing. How to optimize processes, and always thinking about the idea of how this thing can help to make a better cinematography. Also, we have Daniel Peixe. He's just arrived from the United States. You've been in Disney? I've been in Disney for 12 years. No, almost 12 years. Now you're back to Spain. You're in Mallorca with your family, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, I just moved back to my homeland. So I spent so many time out. And you know, Daniel. What is interesting here is that he's in the West. He's thinking, how can I count with VR? How can I tell stories with VR? One of the greatest experiences with VR was Remedy. You don't only create the experience, but there's a narrative side there. And there's a work on how to make most of it. And I really liked it. Your interest field, how can I create a whole new narrative in VR? Yeah, thank you. This is a combination of these two things. These are the two things that I like from the beginning. Visual narrative, 3D, animation. I've been doing lots of time working with animation, but Quill and creating Remedy. This was the very last drop, combining all the things that I liked and being able to answer to that question. How do we tell a story interestingly enough in VR, and how will the audience follow it, and how it can be something that takes you emotionally to the very same place in the story, or the film or a series, not being just demo.
Bueno, pues ese es un
Yes.
poco en el terreno en el que nos vamos a mover.
This is the context. And now, let's begin with you, Enrique. As we said previously, did you find any difficulty when working with a storyboard? Did you miss anything? One of the problems with the storyboard is that there are no problems. Well, I don't agree, really. Not everything works. The truth is, the people who usually work with a storyboard, lots of them work with Photoshop, Loom, and those kind of traditional tools, right? And those people maybe don't suffer a lot. But there are some other people that are after them that suffer a lot, and those people are the editors. The work in Photoshop needs to finish up in just as pictures and are thousands and thousands of little files. And something that I realized is, as I said, we suffer a lot, really. Putting all this together and making all work. Suddenly, one version, another version. And the files are named differently every time. The editor gets crazy. The assembly just breaks again, and when we talked, I realized that there was a solution with grease pencil. Suddenly, out of a sudden, I can just stop the creation of all those files that I need to create a whole assembly. It's because we use two things. In the storyboards of the films, we use grease pencil and that module, editing module. We start working with the editing module in render. At the end, we realized that we didn't even need it. We have been working with the most simple version of the storyboard with grease pencil, which is you start painting, and that's the standard tool. You start painting with a picture, another picture, again and again, and having a timeline, which you can set up the time for every frame. That's it. I don't need even to go through the internal video editor in Blender. And out of a sudden, I realized that that's all. All that suffering of the storing artists and the editors. We even had to use TVs to control the name of the files, to create specific stages, not to break it all in the way. And in a pipeline, when you need to rename something, imagine to stage shot 2.jpg, that's the problem. Well, there's always a pipeline, but it depends on the size of the production. But in our case, the films that we create are not separate productions. Somehow, you're working with 5, 7 versions of every scene with the basics of every storyboard, and there's a lot of information. There are thousands of files, and there's something really significant. And most of the storyboards artists are classic artists. They use the pencil and pen or paper, and they just pass stop motion. They don't want to know anything else about new technologies. And what I did with my team was to discuss about it, and I realized that grease pencil was a great tool. We played along with it, and because of my profile, I'm an IT engineer. My head is always between the technical and the artistical world, and I used to try to find how to save people some time. And I'm also pretty obsessed with the fact of how to make an artist not be suffering within technology. And for me, it's key. What I did was to talk with the story team. This team knew about the classic tools like Photoshop and talked to them about you've got this possibility, and it's about learning how to use a new tool. Well, their faces were interesting to see. At the end, the people who weren't willing to take that step, it takes them a lot to work with it. But the truth is that they wanted to fight for it. It was like a clue. We wanted to go in that way. And they realized that learning how to use grease pencil wasn't that complicated. It's really intuitive for those who know how to draw. It's not that intuitive. When they saw the 3D world, what I need to learn is to fastly say it. Here you have the exit button. Go back to the 2D camera. That was the tool that I needed to explain them more repeatedly. It was pretty well accepted among them, and you can't even imagine how our production changed from that moment. I saw the potential of this tool, and I wanted to reach the layout part, and I wanted to reach the layout stage, but the pipeline gets more complicated, and we need to do interchange between Maya and Blender tools, and we weren't brave enough to take that step. This was a production in which we couldn't take so many risks. We are now in that stage. We are now trying to see how to include this tool, grease pencil, more and more new productions. And for me, it's essential that one of the most complicated things in a 3D production is the gap between the story and the real production in 3D. The story artists have a vague idea on what is the 3D space. Storyboard doesn't give you that much space of that 3D dimension. And for me, the tool that I need, that I want, and I will embrace for the following productions is mixing Quill. Quill lets you fastly create a 3D environment and mix it up with those storyboard techniques to create the little cartoons and also include them in a 3D space and a 3D environment. And from early stages, people will know how many assets are there, what is the dimension of this, how many people are missing, and everything. The thing is, when you include that pipeline, I mean the shape, the size, sorry, and all that, it's really attractive. Can I transform my story in a black layout? That's the dream. I'm saving loads of work. But you need to be careful. When do you include it? Because if that 2D artist that found difficult to adapt to grease pencil, now tell this person that he needs to create the 180 dimension shape size. And I found that really interesting, but in my head, that idea wasn't there. My idea was, let's prototype the filming space before the artist is in the story. This way, he will be more consistent on what he's drawing. A story artist, he doesn't have the full space in his head. There are many things like you draw a corner here, but it doesn't exist. You put a character in a shot and the other is not there. And you can change it at all if this person knows and this is the most interesting thing. No, Daniel. Well, I have no experience at all about what you're talking about. Well, what about the feature film? There's something interesting there. VR, not only as a tool to include in a classic production, to make the process more agile, but how to use quill to prototype a space, to bring a character, and with the quill model it, with the sculpt, model it, and with quill start to do things with the sculpts and all that. There's a more agile pipeline to generate content. Interestingly, what is the reach of VR with storytelling? Yes, when listening to the rest of the colleagues talking about it, I remembered my very first experiences doing storyboard. In fact, you're starting to work with the storyboard to propose storyboards and all that, right? Yes, but let me just tell my experience with cycles. I've been working in Disney for many years, as you know. One of the most exciting things that I found is developing the cycles. You mean the Blender? No, Cycles is the first VR short film. It's a VR short film rendered by Unity. But we started to work it with using a thing. It was made with the SketchUp. You know, the producer started to work with the SketchUp, this program about fastly modeling, and he created the house. I don't know if you watched the trailer of the short film, but he created this story. He created this house, and he was really excited about the story. And somehow he told me the whole story, and he really liked the pictures I created with Quill. And he really liked the idea of, okay, let's create this storyboard with Quill, because the final product is in VR. So it made sense to create a storyboard in VR. So initially, the beginning in Disney, sometimes, you know, the mindset is more traditional. Creating a story, drawing by hand, and then we just make a layout in 3D. But I proposed Jeff Gibson to make the storyboard directly in virtual reality. And he found this idea really interesting. And I love this idea. The experience also to have this responsibility. And what about this storyboard? This was all on Quill. So I brought the model he'd made with SketchUp in Quill, and I started to draw some sketches of the characters. I brought some designs that were in 2D, designed by a super good drawer. And within those designs, I started to do some sketches of the character. It was just a sketch, a draft. It didn't even need to be in the model, but the good thing, the important thing were the expressions, and also to be coherent when it comes to the size within the house and the environment. And when doing these different things that we needed to do, Jeff and I saw that there was a high potential. We were mixing up the expressive drawing with a 3D layout. The two processes were being made at the same time. One of the coolest experiences in Disney. Prototyping the short film in Quill, creating those 3D sketches. That's amazing. In the beginning, it's really difficult to draw a character in Quill. I made it, in the air. I've been drawing during my whole life, but you always have, that safety. You always put your hand in a surface, in a physical surface. And if you guys like drawing, this is useful. You just put your hand somewhere. And this is the comfortable and the beautiful and the beauty of this. However, in Quill, you need to learn that there's no place to put your hand on. It needs to be fixed somewhere in the air in order to begin drawing. When you start to know how it works, the truth is this is like a second skill that you just learned out of sudden, and this is a way of learning. This is a new way of learning to get to know how to do these 3D characters directly with 3D with Quill. And the good thing is that you create this sketch. You draw an arm, grab tool, and suddenly the arm is somewhere else. You select the whole character, the grab tool, you take the head, and the character just turns around, and everything gets distorted, and as if it were a rig. And Jack Frickson freaked out with that. He said, "Wow, this is amazing! Look how fast you did this sketch, and wow, this was revealing." I did all the poses in the short film, went with Quill. We took it all for Unity, and the director started to see the short film. It was just a draft. We didn't even have the final rigs, and the character had been made with rigs. And it was in the 3D space, and he could preview the short film. And little by little, we started substituting with real quigs, with real animation, and to make the animation with Maya. And traditionally, as we made it with Disney, and all that mesh animation was exported to Alembic, was brought to Unity, and they were put together in the same place where the drafts were made. Something I forgot to say is that in that SketchUp house, some pieces were missing. It's a new idea, like I would like to put some flowers here, for example. So you do it in Quill, you pick them, and what do you think about this? And you just bring it all to Quill. And I must say, it's the first experience when using Quill to do the storyboard. For me, it was pretty interesting. And that's it. That's my experience. That's what I wanted to share.
Yes, and that's where you can really see where virtual reality shines, right? When generating content. That's, and we've talked about this before. Virtual reality, in my specific case, doesn't really have to do so much with the glasses. That, of course, gives you the immersive experience, but it has to do with the joystick, right? How you interact with the scene. There are some VR applications to handle rigs that are very easy, very simple, and it's a brutal change, truly. How do you take the character and put it behind? You know, you're moving it in that direction. How do you generate that idea of putting flowers there? There's something in that interaction that is great. And the glasses give you that immersive experience. You can generate content or a scenario or a setting, and there's no better option, truly. Yes. Well, the virtual joystick, essentially, you have the freedom as opposed to a mouse, right? Yeah, well, they have a flat surface where you have to put the mouse. Those tools always work on that flat aspect, right? And you have to move it constantly. In the mesh on Blender, you have to rotate the camera, you have to do those weird turns, you have to do those clicks and then rotate and rotate again. Why? Well, because it's always bidimensional, right? The joystick gives you more freedom. And they allow you to have greater flexibility that the mouse does not give you. That's what Quill gives you, as well as other programs like it. Yes, and actually for Dreams, I've seen some examples, and it's sort of like a simpler version of the joystick. You're creating things, you're sculpting, but without the glasses. Oh, on PlayStation, I'm talking about, yes. So the glasses are not the main thing, really. They give you the immersive experience, and it's wonderful, but they're not key for me. Here we're talking about generating content and then using it for a storyboard or for any other thing. It's even static, right? One of the things, we don't know this, but this week I sent Danny a message saying, I have these classes already. I'm learning. I don't know what to do with them. So one of the things that I'm most interested in this world, and I think that we really focus on, is how you pitch to production departments the next idea, the next thing you're going to talk about. And one of the things that I want to do in my next project is using all of this to say, why don't we stop doing classic illustration for a pitch and do it directly with this? That's one of my ideas. Besides, we don't need to get to that point where we start producing animatics in 3Ds in a virtual state, but we can say we could do 3D illustration already. And instead of doing static images, we could add a camera, a little bit of movement here and there, and then you get to a different point. Compared to most projects out there. And when you take all that to Unreal, to a mesh, to Blender, you can play around with that. You can add lighting. And yeah, that truly makes a difference. So the next topic, and this would be sort of the end of the session, has to do with how, in order to generate content in VR for 2D production, there's a very obvious aspect, which is, you've experienced it. You see there's something really cool about it. But the storytelling in VR is something different, and we'll be talking about that before. You're exploring all of that. So my point in that regard is that VR offers a powerful immersive experience, but it's also its weakness. Let me explain. You can have wonderful VR experiences. Remedy, for example, the VR experience is amazing. It has to do about directions, about the quest, about where to direct the audience's attention. It's very interesting, right? So it's very immersive. That's wonderful. It's amazing. But that's what makes it weak. I think that there is the sharing aspect missing. That is missing. For example, my son and I went to watch The Avengers, and the movie ended, and they said, "Oh my God, did they kill Spider-Man?" And you see their faces, you see them get nervous. And that's the experience, right? Or, you're with your spouse on the couch and you're watching a movie and you see the person getting nervous. Even when you're playing Mario Kart with someone else with your Game Boy. I didn't want to sound like a boomer, but...
A las tres en raya, ¿vale? Entonces,
and you're playing domino, right? Okay, so you see the other person anticipating the expectation. That is part of the experience as well. And of course, now that you have WhatsApp, if the movie is a little boring, you can switch to a different screen. Or if you have children and you're seeing a movie in VR and your kid says, "I'm going to the kitchen, I'm going to grab a knife," and you say, "Okay, well, it's not the same thing, right?" It makes it immersive, and so experiences are really direct, really good, and you live it in a different way. It's what happened to you, right? Someone was talking about that in a pitch today. When you're working there, it's a wonderful feeling. After, if you apply to something flat, fixed, static, half the experience that you had is lost. You need to be aware that someone is going to watch that in 2D and you need to see if it works. But it happened to me, you think of ideas and you say, "This is great," and then it's not. I remember when this VR boom started, I will never forget an experience that I had. Paranormal Activity, they released a VR experience, and there were, you could see the reactions, right? People were recorded playing this VR experience, and we could see what happened to them. And the reactions were wild. It's not like you're watching the movie Paranormal Activity, right? That's scary. It's a terror movie. It's a horror movie. But once you get in it, you are opening the door, checking behind the shower curtain, right? And I remember seeing the reactions. People would like throw the glasses away and run, cry. It was insane. And I said, I cannot compete with this. I can't generate that on a screen. On a movie screen or on a TV screen, there's a limit in terms of the experience that it can offer. And this is groundbreaking. This goes beyond that. It's very hard to solve that out. That's happening with Facebook, Meta, etc. I think that's trying to trespass that limit, right? And say, well, we are in the sharing aspect. Yes, the sharing aspect is part of the experience. It's something private or personal when you play a game yourself for an hour, that's great. But that's what I think is missing. The immersion thing that you were talking about during lunch, right? Yes, the immersion factor. Someone that takes off their glasses because it's so scary, you know, it's so impressive, so immersive, and so personal that you freak out. And the brain thinks it's reality, and you end up taking the glasses off, and then you take them off and you say, okay, I'm at home, actually. I like to hear these comments because it reminds me of, you know, the beginning of the movie theaters. I guess you all know the story of the first footage, or the first scene of a train coming closer, and people that were looking at the screen that had never been to the movie before saw a train coming towards them, and they run because they thought the train was coming for them. It's sort of, that's what it reminds me of, and VR is sort of like that. It's having that effect because it's new. It's so immersive, so realistic that your brain no longer knows what's real or not, and so people get dizzy, people get scared in horror movies, and I think that same thing will happen, right? We will get to a point where it won't be as much of a novelty anymore. We will assimilate it little by little. And you will say, okay, yes, these are glasses, it's entertainment, but if I take them off, it's okay. And about the sharing aspect, I think that's the good thing about traditional movies and traditional screens. There's that aspect of sitting down on the couch with someone right next to you and enjoying that TV show, or going to the movies and sharing with a lot of people that you don't know, and you're all reacting at the same time. You're laughing or getting scared or crying. I think that is never going to disappear. I am an advocate for VR and virtual storytelling, but I don't think it should replace anything. Traditional movie theater should be there. Traditional cinema should be there. I think that virtual reality is just one more channel, and I think it's very interesting. It's another way to tell stories. Just like we have TV, we have comic books, we have TV shows and movies. I think that VR is one more media for us because it offers some things and some possibilities of reaching the audience that the other channels don't have. For example, immersion. You're so into it that you can see anything else. Also, the scale is another aspect. That is provided by the VR, and no other channel can do that. And you can use that to intensify your story and tell it from a different perspective. Yes. I don't really play that much. I don't like video games that much, actually. From time to time, you know, every once in a while, every 6 or 8 years, maybe. But Half-Life is the most recent experience that I've done. And you played that, right? I know because he told me about it. Well, this is a crazy experience. You say, okay, I'm 12 years old again. This is crazy. You played and you're like, oh my God, what is this? But that's an experience that only I could have. Yes, VR is very private, very intimate. I remember I was freaking out. I was like, oh my God, and you're using it and walking around, and nothing could compete with that feeling.
para mí el elemento
para que pueda explotar como element for me.
Para que pueda explotar como consumo masivo, digamos,
for it to be used at a mass scale as a mainstream consumption option,
el poder resolver el compartir.
we need to resolve how to share the experience.
Aumentada, a lo mejor puede haber algo por ahí.
Maybe augmented reality, maybe something like that.
Lo que sí que es verdad que ocurre es que, por ejemplo, hay muchos gamers de estos.
Regarding the sharing aspect, there are lots of gamers that are on YouTube. They put the glasses on, they play a game, and they stream live. People can see, they can comment, they can talk in real time and share that experience with other players. And even if they have the glasses on, you have the content that you're generating that someone is using it. And you know, that person is checking that, but it's also using WhatsApp, is checking what they're going to make for dinner.
Claro. Eso, ¿no? El espectador,
so,
ese es el que pueda,
you know, the audience
la pueda compartir
needs to share the experience.
Sí, y en el caso de narrativa, tipo...
Yes, regarding storytelling,
antes,
la VR todavía es VR
es muy temprano,
está muy verde, in its very early stages. The technology is not mature enough. The glasses are very heavy. And so that's why we were saying that VR is cool, but not too much. You know, we need to use it for short experiences, 10, 15 minutes tops. You know, short episodes, essentially. Well, sometimes what I do, if I'm by myself, I watch a movie that I want to watch.
O sea, como que tienes,
in the
como si estás en un
theater, as if you were in a theater. I mean, you have the screen there, and the feeling that you have is that you're just focused on that. But only if it's a movie that I absolutely need to watch. You don't have the same quality with the glasses, right? But the experience, the problem is to take a sip of your bottle of Coke when you're trying to drink, but I like to see something like that, right? Because it brings me closer to being in a movie theater. But I can only be myself, or weird avatars, right? And you say, who are you? Daisy? Are you Daisy, really?
Sí, esto es algo que la verdad es que todavía no ha llegado, aunque es un poco la utopía esta del metaverso.
It's not mainstream yet, right? It's the utopia of the metaverse, right?
Imagínate que estamos viendo una peli tipo
like
Soda Island.
You're watching a movie such as Soda Island, for example, and you can share that with friends or with family. Or with your son, as you were saying. How could we do that? Glasses would have to be very small, very comfortable, and or maybe in the future we'll have a pass-through technology that will detect the person next to you, and they will cut it sort of automatically, and you can turn around and see your son there watching the same movie in virtual reality. Well, there are some things there, very basic. Microsoft has been investigating that, right? They've been doing some research. Yeah, so you can take a look at your hand, and all of a sudden you see, you know, whatever behind your hand, right, in the background. Right, in this last few days, I don't know if you know about this, but application was bought, and they want to be at the same level as Facebook. Facebook didn't have any competitors so far with the metaverse and all of that, right? Microsoft now is trying to get in that area. They've been researching this for many, many years. And Facebook is no longer going to be there by itself, it seems. So these giant companies are researching all of this. And I think that when we see these latest releases, this last generation, for example, PlayStation with their glasses, etc., that was when I started having the feeling that this is here to stay. This is not going anywhere. It will be at a different scale, but it's not like other waves where like 3D was like huge in movie theaters, but then it went down, you know? That went down very quickly, but this is not. This is going up actually, increasingly. And I think ever since the Ready Player One movie, right, the Spielberg movie, that's what really set this on the path of what it could become. That was an inspiration source. And that's where we see the future. I think that Zuckerberg was the first one that said, this is the direction that we're going in. And he's, he's betting everything on one card. Either this works for Facebook or Facebook is gone. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, changing the name to Meta, etc. It's like they're trying to make sure that we know that they're still cool, right? So Facebook had a lot of problems, really lots of bad press. This month or this year, I can't remember. It was published that it's the first time that they're losing users. They're spending, I don't even know, like $10 billion each year on this, on the metaverse. So either this works for them or they die. So literally, they're putting their lives on the line. Surely, I've talked to many video game studios here in Spain, not outside, here in Spain, that are already working directly to generate VR content for them and to create a big ecosystem of VR experiences to sort of become the VR, the Netflix in the VR area. They want to have a huge catalog of products. You pay a monthly fee and you can enjoy their entire catalog. Yes, okay. Yeah, they sort of have VR experience, right? Sort of like Netflix. It's called Oculus TV. It's a collection of content. Some of them are better quality than others. But it's VR content, whether that's 360 videos or animation, and in that Oculus TV, there's the animation drawer, animation done through Quill. Well, that's sort of the idea. They want to have that. They want to have Quest. They want everyone to have Quest. And thanks to Quest, you can access that library of content that are only focused on virtual reality. And again, some of them are real image, some of them are more 360-degree freedom created on Quill, but well, this is yet to evolve. And, I think there's still a long way to go. And that's it, right?
Caballeros, gracias a los tres.
Thank you, thank you.
Vamos a darle un aplauso.
All, let's give you a round of applause.
Nos quedan 9 minutos y os voy a hacer la propuesta a los tres que hagamos el pass-through del Oculus
ask you to do the pass-through of Oculus to the community to share with them, and they can give us some questions if they have questions for you. I'm guessing there will be some questions for the VR community in the audience. Do you have any questions for our experts? I think there's a question over there.
Yeah, you're definitely right in saying that currently VR experiences are very personal, and that's why they are, that's a weakness. And it's very strange, like when I show Soul Island to my mother, she's just sitting there for 10 minutes in silence with a headset on, and I'm looking at her, and it's a very strange, awkward experience. But I'm wondering if the very ambitious plans from Meta and potentially, hopefully, other companies go right, and the metaverse, the so-called metaverse, becomes a reality, and multiple people enter these experiences, not only games, but really just narratives. And you know, as you mentioned, there are multiple people watching it. You can see them with the new headset, apparently getting facial tracking. You can see their facial expressions. What happens if your favorite superhero doesn't die on a screen, but he dies next to you, and you're like, your son, and you could have saved him or something?
Yeah, totally. I think, but I think this is the point to resolve, to share the experience. Yeah. Okay, maybe with all this metaverse thing or all this kind of future, it will be nice that share my intense experience with some people at the same time.
Thank you. Any other questions from the floor? Pues si no hay más preguntas, os agradecemos.
All right, if there are no more questions, I'd like to thank you for this in-depth analysis of VR, of the new applications, and its limitations, and its potential to develop the future. Thank you for sharing your assessment with the Next Lab community. Now we are going to leave because we are going to get the room ready for the award ceremony to our winners of this Next Lab edition. So please leave the room. You can leave everything here. We're going to close the room, getting ready for the award ceremony that will begin at 7:30.
¿Sí? Ok, fenomenal. Pues un último aplauso para nuestros.
All right, one last round of applause. See you at 7:30.